Welcome to People Tech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. I'm Mark Feffer, and recording again today at the Expo Hall of the HR Technology Conference and Exhibition, and I'm joined with Tim Sackett.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Tim. Tim, a lot of people know you in the business, but would you take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. I run like a staffing firm that my mother started literally 45 years ago, right? I've owned it the last 3 years, ran it the last 12. That's the day job. But then probably 12 years ago, the Recruiting Daily's own William Tin Cup got me into the HR tech space and started writing and demoing. And I probably look at 150 different technologies on an annualized basis, which is still just a fragment of like the actual landscape, right?
Right.
But it's Gladwell's 10,000 hours. It's still... I'm probably doing more of that than most people. So you become a 1%er and become kind of an HR tech expert. So do a lot of like analyst consulting work around technology, especially around the talent acquisition, tech stack. But really I'm a nerd around all of it, right? So I love all of the HR tech stuff. So coming here is like Christmas, for a lot of us that love to nerd out on HR tech.
Now, we went a couple of years without an HR tech. So now that we're back, what have you seen here that really, really interests you?
Again, I think like to me that it's taking all of the data. So I think one of the things we've in HR, we tend to be data rich, information poor. We have a ton of data, maybe more than anywhere else in the entire organization. But we've been really lacking on the BI kind of capabilities. And so what I see on the floor now is how do we really take the data you have and transform it into insights and information to really help, drive the business outcome, not just HR outcomes, but like drive business,
Do you think practitioners, by and large, are really ready to handle data properly? Are they getting the education that they need?
No, and I think that's that's another piece of what we're seeing is the simplification of all of that, right? Most people, if you take 1,000 HR people, only one of that 1,000 will want to really get their hands dirty with the data. Most of them want the picture of it. They want the dashboard. Tell us what's happening and give us some predictive kind of insights to what we should be doing based on what it's saying. And I think that's the level of where most HR people want it. Quite frankly, it's the level where most of our leaders organizationally want it as well. They don't really want to, they want to leave the data science to the data scientists and the business analysts. They don't really want to dig in that deep. They just want to go, what is the data telling us and what should we be doing? And if you can tell us at that level, at a very high level, that's probably where they all should be sitting about right now.
Well, let me ask you about recruiting.
Yeah.
Specifically. That seems to be using technology more and more and getting more and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of great walking around here and seeing what everybody's up to. What do you think are the big trends that are happening?
You and I can take a look just in front of us in our face right now, and I think the buyer's overwhelmed with the complexity and the overlap of all the technology. So to me, like some of the better, kind of trends around the recruiting side is how do we make a lot of this stuff invisible to the end user? So that recruiter I don't need them to flick more switches and pull more levers, right? I need just stuff to work behind the scenes that is delivering them a pipeline of candidates that match, what we want them to do, and spend time on really developing relationships and having conversations. I don't need them to, spend hours upon hours, sourcing and searching and trying to match when we have technology that can do that better 24/7.
Well, I guess that sort of hints at the balance between technology and people.
Yeah.
We let the technology do that sorting kind of stuff, and the people. I always read about companies adopting AI, and that in turn gives their professionals, their recruiters, more strategic work to do.
Yes.
Is that true?
It could be true. And the question is that we have to define strategy, right? In terms of that strategic, because I think the future of recruiting is recruiters that actually have a skill set that would be around being able to build trust and relationships with candidates very quickly, and figuring out like how do we do that versus I'm going to have them spend 35 hours of their 40 hours of work doing all, dotting I's and crossing T's and doing all this tactical stuff of like scheduling and, all the operational stuff of recruiting. And so ideally the capacity, like the technology adds capacity to a recruiter then to go, and not just with a candidate, right? They should also have a great relationship with the hiring manager and great trust. If I'm a recruiter and I say, hey, I found this great candidate, I screened, I feel like they're a match for the job, for the company, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't have to send that to the hiring manager. I should actually be able to put that on the hiring manager's schedule because they have a trust and a relationship with me that they 100% believe if I'm recommending somebody, they want to talk to that person. What we have right now is not. Most recruiters do not have that ability or access or time really to build that kind of level of trust and relationship where they go, I think my recruiter that supports me knows my business and knows what I'm looking for.
With the tools doing the sourcing, are they doing a good job?
I mean, I think they're doing a better job. The problem with any kind of technology is you're talking about scale and number. And you can always pull out one. You can say, well, hey, the technology didn't find this person. I found this person. Yeah, but statistically over time, the technology is finding way more people than you are finding. And it's all, and that's where we fall down is too often I find when the adoption lags on the technology is you have a recruiter that's trying to compete with the technology and they give one-on-one examples that are valid and versus going, yeah, but we're talking about scale. I'm not talking about one-to-one. And that becomes the problem.
Shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Skills has become a big conversation the last year or so.
Yeah.
How is it impacting recruiting?
That's a great question. I don't know if it really truly has yet. I mean, I think at enterprise it has because now if you're a recruiting team and you've really turned on internal mobility to understand what skills do we have and where can I move people within the organization, start, rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic, so to speak, in a much more intelligent way. I kind of understand right away, like, okay, hey, we have a gap here and here from a skills standpoint. At mid-enterprise and lower, which is still the vast majority of the hiring, that we do, I don't know if it's really made that impact. But at enterprise, we've seen like just huge adoption to that. So I do think more and more we have a TA team strategically thinking about not just how we bring people into the company, but how do we actually keep them by leveraging the skill sets they have and leverage them when they want them, not necessarily just when we want them. Right. And that's been the difficult piece. We've allowed so much talent to leave our organizations for our competitor because we weren't allowing them to easily understand where they could be in our organization, how they could move. And the more and more we do that, that it just helps overall. I mean, I tell people all the time, the best recruit that you'll ever have is the one you don't have to make because you retain somebody,
Right.
And we only do that if we really have that knowledge of skills that are at our inventory that are already in our company. Right.
I've heard it said that there's 3 ways you get skills. You build them, you buy them, or you borrow them.
Yeah.
So I get that. But when you sort of apply it to a company like an enterprise,
Yeah.
that's got to be a really complicated thing to
Inexpensive.
implement.
Yeah.
Oh, can you talk about it?
Well, Mark, you and I have been in the industry long enough that we remember a time when companies would actually invest in like building talent. Whether that was an apprenticeship program of some sort or whatever that might be, we would actually spend lots and lots of money to build the talent we needed. And then somewhere along the line over the last couple of decades, we've really walked away from that and assumed that higher ed or public education or somebody would do that for us. And what we've found is that's actually a really bad replacement, right? We actually have to go back as an organization and start investing in building the talent that we need. And so it's not always about, I'm going to hire, entry-level college grads. Maybe for a lot of the jobs I have, based on the skill sets we need, I can hire high school kids. We can develop them, train them more as a white-collar apprenticeship versus the blue-collar apprenticeship. But we're starting to see those come back. And I think, to me, that's another future of HR that we don't talk about enough is, the technology landscape is there, right? I mean, there's technology out there that can help us do that and build our talent. But there's a lack of an investment, and part of that's trust of our leadership. Our leaders are like, well, wait a minute, if we spend all this money building the talent, what's going to happen? They're just going to go work someplace else. You're like, well, no. They don't. That's a bad idea to say that that's going to happen. It only happens if you decide that you want to treat them poorly or give them a bad work experience or whatever. So you can't say, oh, we're going to build talent and then treat them like shit and think they're going to stay around, right? We got to build talent, treat them well, give them a great opportunity, and then that investment comes back tenfold. But yeah, of course, if you're just going to build and then try to grind them out, that's going to be a bad investment. And too many of our leaders believe that the investment's bad, so they would rather just go and borrow and steal, right, those skills instead of building.
Steal. You're talking about learning, basically.
Yeah.
And it seems like learning platforms and learning systems have become a lot more flexible and a lot more interesting, frankly, in the last, say, 2 years. What's driving that?
I think it's really, to me, it started with, we got away from traditional kind of training development that we've seen. It hasn't really changed in decades. I mean, we might have added some technology or platforms around stuff, but the ability to I think micro learning coming in and understanding that we've really built a culture around younger generations that expect that they can pull up YouTube and learn something in 3 minutes, right? And we had to adapt to that kind of culture of saying you don't have to have a 3 hour, a 4 hour, an 8 hour, kind of sit in a classroom for one day and learn something. Mm-hmm. Let's figure out bite-sized ways to do this on an ongoing basis over time. And you'll probably get a higher adoption and a faster move for a lot of these. And again, the ability to do kind of multi-channel video, audio, not just like a written, book kind of stuff that we would do traditionally. So it's really, it's kind of become more entertaining in a way. And again, that's, hey, that's just part of what we have to do. If you want to keep someone's attention, the best trainers I ever had going through my career as I was coming up were always people who were entertaining, right? They made the training interesting. Well, we figured out that that's really unreliable to hire a bunch of people and you hope that you got some people who are entertaining. But we can actually create content in a multi kind of channel environment that actually is very entertaining and engaging and keeps somebody really hooked in. And again, the social medias, just the advent, I think, of a lot of the technologies that we use on a daily basis in our life has really showed us in the training world and learning world how we should be able to kind of get that connected.
One of the things people are talking about in this space is learning in the flow of work.
Yeah.
Only really started to hear that, I think, late last year or this year.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that?
It makes complete sense, right? I mean, we talk about this even in the recruiting side as well. Is you want people to you want to add technology into how they work on a daily basis. You don't want to ask them to actually leave that flow of work and go someplace else to have to get something or learn something. It breaks up your day. It becomes less efficient. There's more waste. And so if we can teach them and have learning set up in that flow of work for them, it makes it so that it's just easier for them to actually consume on a daily kind of basis. They'll do more of it. And it feels like it fits. It feels like it's not just it was something that was designed separately from what they're doing on a daily basis. So I think it works perfectly. Yeah.
It makes integration more important.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Where do you think that's going? I mean, I have this vision of there's going to be a generation of technology products that have no UI.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to be,
delivered.
In.
Yeah. It's interesting. I still don't even think we're really early in the virtual side of this as well. And not even just for learning the power that could have in the virtual reality, augmented reality world. Think about that from a learning perspective, but even like a meeting perspective. Think about we have 3 kind of workplaces. We have a remote, we have a hybrid, we have an on-prem. The problem we have culturally is we're asking people to kind of connect in whatever environment they're in. Whereas I could throw them all, no matter where they were sitting or working, in a virtual environment, and now they're equal. They're in the same exact environment. They have the exact same tools, the exact same connection. And to me, we're going to see more of that kind of stuff happen as well. In terms of just, I wouldn't say necessarily fairness. I think it's a struggle to build culture across all these different landscapes. Like somebody who's working remotely versus somebody on-prem, they're always going to have different cultures, but we need one organizational culture. So the more we can pull them in together in one shared space becomes, really powerful.
Right. But, with remote workers and hybrid workers, really more remote workers, getting the culture to sort of wrap around them is a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah.
How do you do it?
I wouldn't be here at this if I had figured that out. I will tell you, it's a challenge because everybody I talk to, unless they've actually worked remote for a long time and they're comfortable there and they're working for a company that has not really figured it out, but maybe it's full remote company. It's the challenge of having all like remote, hybrid, on-prem together. Because what we're hearing then from the remote workers in those environments are, I don't feel connected enough. I don't feel like necessarily I'm a part of the overall culture, and you have to really reach out. And by the way, it's twofold. The worker has to reach out, and the company has to reach out and build that and kind of build that bridge on the remote side. Hybrid might be a little bit easier. Again, we see all kinds of stuff people are testing. I still think we're still early on all of this. I think that digital build of digital culture is something that, like, as we take a look at 2023, 2024 and HR tech, we're going to see companies coming out saying, hey, we figured it out. Here's how we do it, right? And here's the solution. I have yet to see anybody. You see a lot of culture companies, but you don't see ones that have said, hey, we figured out this kind of digital landscape.
Tim, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.